Welcome to episode 364 of the Nope Coach podcast. Be unapologetically you. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. A few years ago, I remember seeing a meme, and as I describe it, if anyone comes across it, please email it to me at info@suzannekohlberg.com because I haven't been able to find it again. I'm really kicking myself that I didn't screenshot it. But basically, it was an image of a whole bunch of, I'm guessing they were supposed to be people who were shaped like circles. And then there was a person who was a triangle, and they'd carved off, like literally carved off, and you could see the red edges to try and make themselves be a circle so that they could fit in. And that image has stuck with me for years because how often for myself, many people I work with, many people I know, we try and change ourselves so that we can be more pleasing, so that we can be more accepted, so that we can fit in with others. And as this meme, maybe it was more of a comic, played out, towards the end, the triangle found other triangles. And just, it was only a cartoon, but the expression on the face and, I was just, it's such a relief to be unapologetically you, because there is no end of people who are going to tell you that you're either too much or you're not enough. So you're too loud, you're too bossy, you're too pushy, you ask for too much, or you're too quiet, you're too meek, you don't speak up. And it's exhausting trying to work out which version of you you need to portray in which area of your life. It's like forever being a chameleon. And it's about time that we just said, like, fuck that shit. This is me. Like the other movie song I really enjoyed is This Is Me from The Greatest Showman, because, yeah, I'm, being in that song, they talk about hiding away and, not being a stranger to the dark and, don't show your broken parts. So if you haven't listened to that song, This Is Me from The Greatest Showman, I highly recommend after this episode, Google that, find it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and just really listen to the lyrics. In what areas of your life have you been like a triangle trying to carve off parts of yourself to be more circular or to be in a different shape? And how does that feel? It's exhausting for me to be like, oh, which Suze do I need to present in this place? How do I need to dress? How do I need to speak? What do I need to remember? And I just reached a point in my life within the last 5 years, especially, but coming on the last 10, where I'm like, I'm done. There are some people who aren't going to like me. That's okay. Their loss. Because the thing is, when I try to be something else, there are still going to be people who don't like me. And newsflash, I don't like me either. So it's the lesser of two evils to be unapologetically you, because as long as you like yourself and believe that you are enough, and there's a difference between, well, I know this, Suze, of nascent eye roll, I've heard this all before, but actually the work of living it day to day, when somebody asks you, could you do this or would you do this? And really, you just don't want to be able to say, thanks for thinking of me, but no, or not this time, or I'm not the best person for this. And then be able to hold the response, which isn't always positive. Sometimes you'll say that to someone, they'll be like, cool, thanks, and move on. And sometimes the pressure will start, but you did it last time, but I'm in a rush or a hurry, but I'm in a bind. And then that sense of obligation. Obligation is like one of the shittiest feelings for me personally to feel. As soon as I feel obligated, obligation quickly followed by frustration. But frustration doesn't bother me as much personally. It's not as heavy. Like I get frustrated on the daily. I get frustrated when my computer won't load fast enough. I get frustrated when I'm stuck in traffic. Like frustration is, to me, a lighter feeling emotion than obligation. Now, obviously, we can never get rid of a sense of obligation. There are some things that we're just obligated to do. Like if my kids put on a concert, I'm obligated to attend. And you might think, oh, what a horrible mother. But, I'm going to be unapologetically me. I don't like attending kids' concerts, even my own. So it's not that you never do anything out of obligation, but there's not a heavy sense. Like I'll attend the show once and be fully present, but I won't attend every single night But some people would love that. Like my daughter was telling me that Taylor Swift's mum attends every single one of her concerts. Now, maybe it's different if your kid's a international star with, billion downloads in a week or something. I don't know, but I don't know even if my kids made it to that level of stardom, if I'd want to attend every single one of their shows. I'm just not wired that way. Then again, if they're in theatre, like say Xanthi landed a role in Hamilton and she was like Angelica or something, I'd probably attend every single one of those. So it's being aligned to, what lights you up and what feels good for you. When you do things out of obligation, there can be so much linked to guilt and shame and a spiral. And then we end up doing things to cope, whether it be overeating, over shopping, over drinking, gambling, all these things, as a way to just, fuel the void or the emptiness within us. Whereas if we just spoke up, we could have a totally different experience, or we could find a level of compromise. So I am an introvert. If you're new to the show, hello. If you've been following me for a while, some people often question that, but yes, I'm an introvert. I recharge alone. I love to be alone. And one of the things is like going for a walk. Sometimes I'll take the kids with me. More often than not, I'll go on my own. Or sometimes I'll do 2 walks in a day, one with them and one on my own. And just yesterday, I was out for my solo walk and I wasn't far from where I live, my house, and I came across a stall with these young girls and they had made little bracelets. I think I have it handy, or maybe I put it down in my room. Can't see it. Little bracelets, books, all this sort of stuff. And one of them boldly came over to me and asked if I'd buy something from their stall. And I was like, yes, seeing A, young entrepreneurs making their wares and selling them, B, the stones, the wherewithal to ask for a sale. Like, I'm going to celebrate this all day. But I hadn't taken my wallet with me. I don't carry cash if I'm just going for a walk. So I said to her, I'd love to buy something, but I don't have any money with me right now. I'll go home and get some and I'll come back. And so I walked home, and that's when I said to my kids, hey, there's some kids down the road. They're having a stall. I'll grab some cash. You want to come buy something? So, I didn't feel obligated. Like I could have said to the little girl, no, thank you, I'm not interested, and kept walking. But like that wasn't much out of my way. I enjoyed it. My kids loved it. And when we walked back, the little girl's face just lighting up, like I'll never forget that moment. And she's like, see, mummy, she said she was going to get some money and come back. It's the lady. And my kids pick something out and I pick something out. We have these little bracelets. If you're on my newsletter list, I sent a photo out. If you're not on my newsletter list, shameless plug, suzannekolberg.com/newsletter. You should sign up. I have such a great relationship with people on my list. Anyway, we didn't have the right change. So the girl, she had a little cash register. It was just a plastic kid's toy one, but she was set up. And I was like, oh, honey, you can keep that as a tip. And, that quote, a rising tide raises all ships or lifts all ships, is so true, because she was over the moon. The mum was so thankful. My kids were happy. And, part of being unapologetically me is if I see a small or young entrepreneur or somebody who, is trying something, I will 100% support them. And sometimes we can think, oh, like, if a friend is starting a business, you might not be in a position to monetarily support them. There are so many ways that you can support people without money. You can like their posts, you can share their posts, you can comment on their posts, you can recommend or refer them to people who you think will benefit from it. Anyway, this is getting on a tangent. Back to, being unapologetically you. What is something that you do that is 100% you? This title of this episode, I also did a talk on this on the Visibility for Women in Business System Mind Roundtable recently. And if you go to my YouTube, click on playlists, you can find that. What I spoke about is strategies that you do in business. There's endless number of strategies. Like there are endless types of underwear, and you can try on someone else's strategy, much like you could try on someone else's underwear. Not saying to be comfortable, do not recommend, but it is possible. And what I was saying when I gave this presentation, like it's a whole 10-minute talk, but in a nutshell, if my late mother heard me giving this example, she'd be like, Suzanne, you can't talk in public about underwear. That's uncouth. I can literally hear the tone of her voice as she would say that. But the thing is, to her, it would be. But part of me being unapologetically me is I'm mischievous, I'm irreverent, I'm direct. Some would say blunt. But, being me, there's so much joy and freedom and lightness in that, as opposed to being the conditioned version, like, don't use those words, don't ask for this, don't speak up. And just these experiences recently of these, small children coming over and saying, would you buy something from us? And that being encouraged and, supporting that is part of being unapologetically me. This show, which is now, we're wrapping up our daily podcast. The show will keep going. So for those of you listening, I'm not ending the show at day 365 or episode 365, but I won't be doing it daily anymore. I'm just going to record when I feel called to. But, the experiment to, can I do a daily show for 365 days? I can't think of anything more unapologetically me than that. Some people thought it was weird, wacky, crazy, nuts, silly, stupid, dumb. But I was like, I want to do this. Who do I become as a result of doing this? So often we what's the saying? You put the cart before the horse. You're like, what am I going to get from this? What's going to be the result? What's the outcome before we even start? And we can never predict the outcome. Even things that seem, I was talking to my husband this morning, he's an electrical engineer. And he's like, you go to university and they go to the careers night and they say engineering pays this much. And, this is the kind of job security that you can expect. He's been in the game for over 20 years now. And, we've had a number of redundancies, relocations. We've moved around Australia. Like, yes, he has had this level of pay, 100%, but they never also said that, places can shut or move or transport or relocate or no longer have this division. Like, there's so much uncertainty in the world. Like, I don't even need to start on that tangent. We all know that something that is a sure thing isn't always a sure thing. But part of being unapologetically you isn't always going for the sure thing. It's following that nudge and that intuitive guidance, that gut feeling to just do this, even though logically it doesn't make any sense. At least for, people who are wired in the way I am. Other people will be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. I want the logic, I want the science. And it's a fascinating dynamic in our household, having a traditionally employed engineering logical, husband, and the wife who's like, let's just, he calls himself the jackhammer. He's like, this is where we're going to go, drills down in his career. Whereas I'm the hummingbird. I flit around. It's like, I'm finishing up now 365 days of daily podcasts. What am I going to do next? What challenge am I going to give myself next? Because part of being unapologetically me is going with the flow, following the divine breadcrumbs like Hansel and Gretel style, and sticking with things that, don't necessarily turn out instantaneously. I think many of us, we think if something doesn't work out in, a week or 30 days, or even, 365 days, so many people go, how many downloads have you got? How many followers have you got? How many sales have you got? They're so fascinated by the maths and the numbers and the stats that they lose sight of who you become by committing to something in, out, no matter what happens daily for a period of time. Yeah. All of this to say, becoming unapologetically you, leaning back, trusting your gut, re-listening to that little inner voice that perhaps you've quietened down or ignored or dismissed, and realizing that you're not going to be universally liked. But the thing is, even if you do round your edges, you're not going to be universally liked anyway. And then at least if people don't like you when you're unapologetically you, they don't like the real you, which is often a harder pill to swallow. If you're pretending to be something else and people don't like that, in my opinion, it's easier because you're like, well, I'm not like that anyway. But if you're truly you and people take offense to that, because remember, offense can only be taken, not given, then that sometimes is a harder thing to work with. Lots of things to ponder today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Looking forward to tomorrow, which is, the last of my daily days. And yeah, catch you on the next one. Bye for now.